Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Alex and I'm a 42-year-old data analyst. My life is built on patterns, on predictable routines, and on the comfortable feeling of knowing what comes next. I don't see my routines as a prison. I see them as a way to be free. It's like a perfectly structured piece of music for a person who works with spreadsheets. For 15 years, my wife, Sarah, used to tell me she loved that about me. She called me her constant, her safe harbor in a world full of chaos. I guess that's a romantic way of saying I was about as exciting as an emotionally laminated piece of furniture. For more than a decade, I was proud of that role. I provided for our family, I supported our life, and I kept things moving at a steady, reliable pace. She, on the other hand, was the sail. That's how I saw it in my head. I built the ship. It's a strange comparison, considering she never learned how to swim, but let's go with it. I was the hull, the engine, the barnacle-scraping, salt-weathered undercarriage of our domestic cruise liner. She was the wind, whimsical and, at times, a bit like a tornado. There was the pottery phase. Remember that? No? That's fair. It lasted 4 months and cost more than my used Subaru. Every room of the house looked like a ceramic crime scene. I'm still finding shards in the attic. Then she started teaching yoga part-time, of course. That came with incense that triggered my allergies and clients who always managed to park like drunk squirrels. I handled everything else. The mortgage was my responsibility. The investments were mine. Health insurance also mine. And don't even get me started on trying to pick a dental plan that covered adult braces and holistic cranial therapy. Because teeth hold trauma too. Anyway, last Thursday, Sarah, the same woman who once cried because a bird landed on her shoulder and she thought it was a sign, sat me down in our living room. It wasn't the one we used every day. It was the one she redecorated last fall to look like a catalog for aspiring therapists. The room was all calming colors and throw pillows with stitched mantras like, breathe and release. She wouldn't look at me. Instead, she stared at a decorative vase. Cost $1,800, imported from a place that doesn't believe in mass production. That vase cost more than my first car, and it doesn't even hold water. That's not a metaphor, it literally leaks. Then she spoke, her voice as soft as a meditation app. I need some space, she said. Oh, here we go. I didn't say a word. I've learned that the first 5 minutes of any sentence that starts with I need are just runway clearance for an emotional takeoff. You just let them talk. The preamble is for their comfort, not yours. You're a good man, she said, like she was giving a eulogy at a funeral nobody RSVP'd to. A wonderful provider. Great. The verbal equivalent of a participation trophy. But you're not fun anymore. We're not fun. Everything is so planned, so safe. Yes, Sarah, safety, the audacity, I thought. I need to feel alive again, she said. I need to find my own path. I stared at the faux structural wooden beam she made me install above the TV. It does nothing. It holds up air, but it cost my entire bonus last year. It was a perfect trophy of style over function, a monument to her whim. She kept talking, but I wasn't really hearing her anymore. Not emotionally. My brain was just scrolling through the past year like a financial audit. The giggling at text messages she'd refused to read aloud. The sudden obsession with working out at 8 p.m. The fitness gear I'd never seen before, with expensive brand names I didn't even recognize. All I knew was the tags on those outfits cost more than my monthly electric bill. That's when I knew something didn't break in me. It just became solid. All those little data points I'd been ignoring suddenly aligned. And then came Liam, her spiritual guide, her tennis partner, her allegedly platonic soul mirror, who only wears linen and thinks sunscreen is a government scam. The sudden, breathless reverence she developed for him was intense. 1 week she was trying goat yoga, and the next she was quoting Liam like he was a New Age Shakespeare. The pieces clicked into place like magic. All those previously scattered, nonsensical data points, the giggles at texts, the mysterious mood swings she blamed on Mercury retrograde, a wine-fueled rant about how enlightenment requires court shoes and someone named Liam correcting your backhand, suddenly formed a perfectly straight regression line. And I don't mean that emotionally. Statistically, that's how obvious it was. I looked at her then, really looked, not through the nostalgic blur of our 15 shared years or the soft focus haze of loyalty. Just clean, unfiltered sight. The $200 leggings. The manicure that sparkled like vengeance under the soft lighting and the bare finger where her wedding ring used to sit. Apparently, it interfered with her energy flow. Sure, gold is heavy. So are vows. And yet, despite all that, I knew what she wanted from me. A performance. She was waiting for me, the spreadsheet, to short-circuit, to reboot with a new firmware update. Spontaneous, sexy, and suddenly obsessed with travel influencers. She wanted me to beg, to get down on one metaphorical knee and say, baby, what if we booked that healing trip to Bali where strangers hit you with palm fronds and call it wellness? Instead, I said, I'm done. One word. One syllable. dropped like a stone into her carefully curated serenity pool. She blinked, eyes darting, looking for the lines she'd rehearsed, but suddenly realizing the scene had changed genres. Done? Just like that? You're not even going to fight for us? I tilted my head, not smugly, but with the calm resignation of a man who had just realized he'd been trying to debug a relationship running on someone else's operating system. You just told me you want a trial separation, I said, my voice even and precise, like I was reading back an itemized invoice. I'm agreeing to your terms. This is what you want. You should be happy. That threw her. You could see it, like an actor whose scene partner had skipped 3 pages ahead and landed on the last line of the play. She fumbled for control. Well, okay then, good. I'm going to go pack. And up the stairs she went. I didn't follow. That part of the movie was over. I sat there, listened, drawers opening, hangers clacking, the thud of shoes thrown into a bag, the dull soundtrack of my life being dismantled. One designer blouse and ethically sourced scarf at a time. For a moment, just one hot, blinding moment, I wanted to smash that idiotic vase. The one she just had to have, flown in from Portugal, probably sculpted by a blindfolded monk or something. But I didn't because that would be dramatic. And drama was her language, not mine. Instead, the wave came, white-hot rage, followed by a grief so heavy it almost buckled me. I thought about the girl I married, the one who used to laugh so hard at bad knock-knock jokes she'd snort soda through her nose, the one who shared a mattress on the floor with me in a shoebox apartment and thought that was bliss. Where did she go? I let it all in. The anger, the sadness. I let it marinate for a solid hour while I sat in a room that still smelled faintly of sandalwood and betrayal. Then, as the emotions drained away, something settled in their place. Clarity, cold, clean, clinical. This wasn't a trial. This was a strategic withdrawal, a one-sided ambush, but I wasn't going to be its casualty. I pulled out my phone. A separation is a legal event. It has rules. It has consequences. She wanted a new life? Fine. I would simply facilitate its authentic beginning. My first call wasn't to a bank. It was to a highly recommended family law attorney, Dan Jensen. I got his voicemail, which was, thankfully, just a standard legal greeting and not breathy saxophone music. I left a short, concise message. 30 minutes later, I had an email in my inbox. Consultation available tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. DJ. The next morning, after a night of sleep that was less sleep and more extended blinking while staring at the ceiling, I sat in Dan Jensen's office. It was tastefully decorated. A mahogany desk, degrees on the wall, a bonsai tree that was somehow more put together than I was. I laid it all out. The separation talk, the Liam, the energy flow, wedding ring betrayal. He listened carefully without blinking or twitching or, thankfully, smirking at any of it. When I finished, he gave me advice. Calm, methodical, not revenge-driven. This wasn't some Hollywood drama where I torture a yoga mat collection in a blaze of petty glory. This is about protection, he said, steepling his fingers like a man who's ended many a joint checking account. The moment of separation is a critical legal marker, Alex. From this point forward, your actions must be transparent and defensible. Got it. I wasn't going to be the villain in her TED Talk. So, following his counsel, I spent the rest of that Friday doing something I excel at. Taking deliberate, structured, unflinchingly rational steps, one spreadsheet at a time. The strategy unfolds. Financial separation. I opened a new individual checking account in my name only. I didn't zero out the old one. That could be interpreted as financial abuse. We don't do abuse, we do compliance. So I left $4,000 behind, a transitional buffer, like a farewell fruit basket for her new independence. Then I transferred the rest, my savings, my salary, my dignity, into my new secure account. I updated my direct deposit with HR. Future income rerouted. I took a screenshot of the transaction. I timestamped it, June 14th, 2:48 p.m., post-separation declaration. I may be emotionally gutted, but by God, I am auditable. Credit disentanglement. I was the primary holder of our shared credit card. Sarah was just a supplementary user. I called the credit card company, informed them of our change in status, and had her card deactivated. Not paused, deactivated. She'd have to manifest new credit elsewhere. I took full responsibility for the balance, just under $8,000. Probably 30% yoga apparel, 40% decorative candles, and 30% I don't even want to know. Clean cut, no more codependent capitalism. The benefits time bomb. I logged into the HR portal, my favorite kind of battleground, and updated my marital status to legally separated. That triggered a qualifying life event. HR speak for pull the lever, drop the benefits trapdoor. The system updated in real time. It notified me that spousal benefits for Sarah would be terminated as of the last day of the current month. It was June 15th. She had 15 days left. After that, Sarah would be riding the Cobra Express, And a letter with those charming details would be sent to our home address within 10 business days. That step hit harder. Not because of the money, but because her Maxalt prescription for migraines costs over $600 a month without insurance. I knew that, and I still did it. Not out of cruelty, but because this is what she asked for. Independence comes with copays. Saturday, she came by to pick up more of her things. She was breezy, that brand of false, light breezy that makes you wonder if someone's about to sell you essential oils or join a cult. She strolled in like she was returning from a solo trip to Tuscany, not dismantling a 15-year marriage. "Hope you're not too lonely rattling around in this big old house," she said, flashing a pitying smile that made me want to label her an unregistered nonprofit. "I'm managing," I said. Then, with the kind of precision one usually reserves for cutting diamonds, I added, "By the way, I've started the formal process. Just wanted you to know." She was halfway to the coat closet, thumbing her phone. "Process? What process?" she asked distractedly, like I had just informed her I was alphabetizing the spice rack. "The separation," I said. "Legal stuff. Lawyers. You'll probably want to talk to one." She laughed. "Oh, Alex," she said, with the mockery of someone who still thinks a trial separation is just a relationship nap. "So dramatic. It's a trial. We'll talk in a few weeks, right? Because while I'm here calculating Cobra timelines and updating marital status with HR, she thinks we're doing some sort of Netflix cliffhanger." She had no idea. She truly thought I, the Rock, would just stay here, parked loyally on the porch like a golden retriever with a 401k, while she went off finding herself, with Liam and his open chakra tennis backhand. She was wrong. It took about 5 days for the cracks to reach her curated reality. Right on schedule, the credit card. Text, Wednesday afternoon. "Alex, this is so weird. My card was just declined at Lululemon. The girl at the counter was so rude about it. Can you call them? I think their system is down." Oh yes, the great Lululemon collapse of 25. Truly a national tragedy. Me. "There's no system error. I canceled your supplementary card last week. We're separated, Sarah. Our finances are separate now too." Silence. Then 3 dots. Appearing, disappearing, the digital version of someone pacing in flip-flops. She was probably logging into the old joint account, discovering the $4,000 buffer I had intentionally left behind. Enough to keep her from descending into full panic, but not enough to book a weekend spiritual cleanse with Liam in a boutique hotel in Sedona. Message received. The river of endless funds? Damn. But the main event, the full-blown earthquake, hit this morning. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. The doorbell rang like it had an attitude. I opened it to find Sarah standing on the doorstep, arms folded, jaw set like a disappointed yoga instructor who just found out I don't believe in crystal energy. But she didn't come alone. She brought her mother, Margaret, for reinforcement. Now Margaret, where do I begin? Margaret is a woman who sincerely believes that Sarah's every whim is a divine message from the universe. The kind of person who says, "The stars told me," without irony. According to her, my entire earthly purpose is to fund her daughter's soul path like a subscription to chaos. She's never met a budget she didn't dismiss as restrictive to feminine energy. And visually, she arrived fully Margaret-fied. Her lipstick, slathered on with either a spatula or a paint roller, was a shade best described as angry raspberry surprise. Her lips entered the foyer 3 seconds before the rest of her caught up. Honestly, I'm still not sure if they were her lips or inflatable safety devices. Then there was her hair. What was left of it? Her thinning hairline had retreated so far back, I half expected to see under construction signs on her scalp. But that didn't stop her from styling it into a defiant cotton candy poof, as if sheer volume might distract from the fact that her hairline had clearly filed for separation long before Sarah did. "Alex, I demand you explain this," she said, stomping into my foyer like she was leading a revolution, albeit one sponsored by essential oils and passive-aggressive Facebook posts. Sarah stood just behind her, arms crossed tightly, radiating the kind of self-righteous fury only achieved by people who think consequences are a personal attack. "You canceled her credit card? Are you trying to humiliate her?" Margaret barked. I didn't blink. I've stared down tax audits with more tension. "I'm establishing financial boundaries," I said evenly, which is standard procedure in a legal separation. And that's when Sarah finally cracked. "Standard procedure? This isn't a business merger. Alex, this is my life. You're trying to control me, to punish me for wanting more than this boring, predictable life." My voice stayed flat, emotionless, clinical. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. You wanted a different life. You wanted to be on your own path. I am simply letting you experience the full reality of that choice." I let that settle like a good scotch. Then came the closer. "The predictable life you find so boring also happened to pay for everything." I watched her face tighten. Margaret blinked like a confused possum. And since we're discussing logistics, I added, turning to Sarah, I need to formally notify you of something. Her eyebrows lifted, instinctively bracing for some kind of emotionally coded language. I informed my employer of our separation. As a result, your eligibility for my health, dental, and vision insurance will terminate at the end of this month. I checked my watch. June 20th. That's 10 days from now. You'll receive a Cobra packet in the mail that explains how you can continue the coverage at your own expense. The color drained from Sarah's face like I just unplugged her chakra alignment. Margaret blinked, confused. Probably because Cobra to her sounds like a constellation or a snake deity. What does that mean? She asked. Sarah answered, her voice a strangled whisper. My migraine prescription. Alex, they told me it's over $600 a month without your insurance. That's correct, I said, completely unfazed. So you'll need to budget for that. The Cobra premium for the full plan will likely be around $900 a month. Margaret gasped, genuinely horrified, as if I just told her Sarah would be forced to use generic shampoo. That's monstrous. You can't do that to her. She has a medical condition. She's a 38-year-old adult, I said coolly, who has chosen to separate from the husband who provided her insurance. This is a natural consequence. You're being cruel, she sobbed, tears now erupting in full, equal parts rage and panic. This isn't you, Alex. No, Sarah, this is me, I said. The version of me that finally read the fine print on his own marriage contract and realized he's been subsidizing a spiritual expedition to nowhere. I'm going to call a lawyer, she snapped, lip trembling, eyes gleaming. You'll be hearing from them. I would expect nothing less, I replied coolly. I've already retained counsel myself. His name is Dan Jensen. Now, watching her try to compute that was actually a highlight of my week. I could see the hesitation in her eyes as her brain connected the name to a very different kind of legal proceedings. He's an attorney, I added deadpan. A real one, a professional, not the other one. That hit harder than I expected. Not the name, the preparedness. The fact that I wasn't just sitting around in the dark, crying over her absence and reorganizing the spice rack alphabetically. The fact that I was 2 steps ahead, that I had a lawyer, that I had a plan. That seemed to rattle her more than anything else. She stared at me, eyes wide, trying to reconcile the boring, predictable rock she'd abandoned with the cold, calculating stranger who now stood in his place, fully operational and entirely uninterested in pleading for her return. She grabbed Margaret, still looking like the front row of a MAC lipstick demo, and stormed out of the house. And just like that, the war had begun. The aftermath, the emotional fireworks soon faded. What followed was the slow, grinding rhythm of legal warfare. As promised, I heard from Sarah's lawyer about 2 weeks after our little foyer drama. The letter was something else, a true masterpiece of fictionalized martyrdom. I half expected it to come with dramatic background music and tear stains printed into the paper. It painted me as a cruel, manipulative monster who, gripped by some frothing, punitive rage, had cut off his poor, emotionally fragile wife and left her penniless, barefoot, and sobbing into her chakra stones. It demanded I reinstate all financial support immediately, pay for her legal fees, because nothing says empowerment like putting your tab on your ex, and, best of all, proposed an utterly delusional demand for long-term spousal support. I forwarded the entire thing to Dan Jensen with a subject line that simply read, "Enjoy." He called me the next morning, utterly unfazed. I swear I heard him sipping coffee while he said, "It's a standard shock and awe tactic. They go loud and aggressive, hoping you'll panic and accept a bad deal. We respond with calm, documented facts." And that's exactly what we did. It took him a few days. He's not the type to dash off an email on a whim, but the response was quiet brilliance, a surgical takedown in lawyer form. We calmly refuted every baseless claim. We stated, in plain, boring, devastatingly effective language, that my actions were responsible and taken upon legal advice, following Sarah's voluntary abandonment of the marital home. We were not reinstating any funds, period. Then came my counteroffensive. I'd taken a gamble, a very un-Alex move, and hired a private investigator. Not cheap, not comfortable, but when you're being accused of villainy, it helps to have receipts. It took the investigator only 3 days of surveillance to deliver gold. I received a report, detailed, time-stamped photos, dates, locations, faces, of Sarah and Liam, her spiritual tennis partner / guru / man-bun enthusiast, entering and leaving his apartment over several nights. And there it was, a beautiful, high-res, time-stamped shot of the two of them having a romantic breakfast on his balcony. We attached the PI's report to our response. Every photo, every timestamp, every blurry but undeniable shot of Sarah and her spiritually enlightened tennis guru sneaking out of his apartment like teenagers skipping curfew. We also attached the text message. Yes, the infamous 1 a.m., "You're the light in my darkness" gem from Liam that he apparently sent after a hot yoga session and a bottle of organic kombucha. In our official reply, We stated clearly and without fanfare that Sarah had entered into an adulterous relationship. That this, not the sudden thirst for finding herself, was the true cause of the separation. But Dan Jensen didn't stop there. He added a beautifully precise, legally lethal motion that made me want to frame the PDF. We filed for discovery under the claim of dissipation of marital assets. In plain terms, Sarah had been using my income, our marital funds, to finance her romantic enlightenment with a man who wears mallets unironically. That's fraud, not flirtation. We subpoenaed her bank records, and crucially, we subpoenaed Liam. Oh yes, Mr. All Attachment is Illusion was about to get attached to some court documents. We wanted to examine his financials to determine exactly how much of my money had gone toward smoothies, crystals, eco-retreats, and accidental overnight stays. The reaction? Seismic. About a week after we sent the response, I got a call from an unknown number. My curiosity outweighed my better judgment, so I answered. It was Liam. Except this time, the smug guru voice was gone. No chanting, no hey brother energy. He sounded like a panicked college kid who just realized his term paper was due yesterday. Hey, man Alex, he stammered. I think there's been a huge misunderstanding here. Oh, I don't think there's been any misunderstanding at all, Liam, I replied, with all the warmth of a tax auditor during a heat wave. This is crazy, he sputtered. Your lawyer is subpoenaing me. I'm just a tennis coach, man. I don't want to be dragged into this. It's gonna ruin my reputation. Your reputation is your business, I said flatly. My finances, however, are mine. Sarah spent thousands of dollars on you from an account funded by my salary. My lawyer sees that as fraudulent use of marital assets. You're now a material witness in a divorce proceeding. You can either cooperate or explain to a judge why you shouldn't have to. There was a long, shaky breath on the other end. Then he tried to shift the blame. She told me you guys were over, that it was just a matter of time. Then you'll have no problem stating that under oath in a deposition, I said. Then I hung up. That was the moment when the floaty entitlement of their little romance smashed headfirst into the hard brick wall of legal consequence. Since then, Sarah and Margaret have been calling nonstop, voicemails pouring in like they're running a dramatic podcast titled, The Trials of a Woman Who Wanted More. 1 minute, it's threats of eternal damnation and spiritual karma. The next, it's sobbing, incoherent rambling about how I'm destroying her life. This isn't the man I married, Sarah wailed in one particularly cinematic message. She's right. The man she married would have swallowed this betrayal, absorbed it like emotional insulation, and quietly gone on paying for her enlightenment. The man she left is simply running the data, and the data is not in her favor. The divorce was finalized. 8 months just under, technically, which, according to Dan Jensen, my razor-sharp attorney, is practically light speed for a contentious divorce. His exact words were, "You must have sacrificed a goat to the docket gods." And no, it didn't end in some dramatic courtroom crescendo with gasps and gavel slams. There was no "you can't handle the truth" moment. It fizzled like a sad sparkler on a windy 4th of July. Their entire case collapsed under the weight of its own performative nonsense. Liam turned out to be the linchpin. The man who once told Sarah that honesty is the highest vibration folded like a lawn chair the second he saw a subpoena with his name on it. The threat of a deposition, of having his finances dragged into public view, and of being forced to say under oath that he'd been Sarah's spiritual guide and her horizontal jogging partner before the separation? Too much. He buckled. His lawyer reached out to Dan and, in a voice I can only assume sounded like it came from a man in the fetal position, offered a full, signed affidavit in exchange for being dropped entirely from the proceedings. And boy, did he deliver. He gave us dates, receipts, descriptions, and confirmed the affair began well before Sarah's little, "I need space" conversation. He didn't even try to downplay it. It was a complete surrender. Liam wanted out so badly he was willing to throw Sarah under the bus, light the bus on fire, and hand us the marshmallows. With her infidelity proven and her financial claims exposed as the fiction they always were, Sarah's entire leverage turned to ash. Her lawyer, once a foaming pit bull who seemed powered by rage and wine spritzers, immediately shifted gears. She saw a losing, expensive case circling the drain and, likely thinking of her own unpaid invoices, strongly advised Sarah to settle. Which brings us to the final consequences. The house. We sold it. It was our primary marital asset. We split the equity 50-50 as per state law. No drama there. My share? Enough to put a solid down payment on a smaller but peaceful condo where no one casually accuses me of being too logical for love while wearing $300 leggings. Her share? A single, hefty one-time payment, the last she'll ever receive from me. Spousal support. This was her last stand. Her Braveheart moment. Failed. Thanks to the mountain of evidence proving infidelity and the dissipation of marital assets, the judge awarded her a mere 2 years of minimal rehabilitative alimony. And when I say minimal, I mean it's barely enough to cover rent on a mid-range studio apartment above a vape shop. The fund is officially unfunded. The assets, our dissipation claim stuck. And oh, did it stick? Bank records confirmed it. Over $15,000 of marital funds funneled into the Liam Romance Fund. Gifts, hotels, vegan brunches, a tantric retreat that I'm still trying to unsee from the brochure. That amount was deducted directly from her half of the house equity and awarded to me. In the end, she paid me back for financing her own betrayal. I didn't even have to send an invoice. The lives they chose, the shiny, untethered, just need space to find myself fantasy. They've now fully materialized. Sarah is renting a small apartment. I've seen the photos, gray carpet, beige walls, the kind of place where ambition goes to nap. She now works as a full-time office manager for a landscaping company, a role that, ironically, involves organizing the very chaos she once claimed was her birthright. Her social media used to be curated like a lifestyle blog, yoga poses in golden hour lighting, captions about chakras and destiny, everything framed just right. Now, it's mostly generic inspirational quotes on pastel backgrounds. Stuff like, sometimes you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes in the middle of nowhere you find yourself. Ironic, considering she's found herself between a strip mall and a Dollar Tree. As for Liam, Captain Vibes himself, I've heard he broke up with her the moment his legal troubles began. You'd think a guy who preaches detachment from the ego would handle a subpoena with grace. Nope, he detached from her instead. Fast. Apparently, he's been struggling to retain clients at his club. Turns out, tennis moms don't love hiring a guru with court drama, and not the Wimbledon kind. Reputations, it seems, are like his man Bun. Fragile and unraveling. Margaret, bless her overglossed lips and receding follicular optimism, now has a daughter who is both financially and emotionally dependent on her, and deeply, deeply unhappy with her new non-glamorous life. I assume the cosmic balance crystals have been rearranged at least 12 times by now. As for me, I'm healing. It's not linear, it's not easy, it's a process, an active one. The first few months post-divorce were less about closure and more about combing through bank statements, depositions, and passive-aggressive texts with timestamps. Basically, a grim exercise in legal strategy. But once the dust settled, I had to sit with the wreckage, had to actually feel it. The 15-year crater that used to be my marriage. I got a good therapist. One who doesn't wear beads or talk about reclaiming your sacred masculine. He just listens, challenges me, helps me process the sheer scale of the deception. It's not about anger anymore. I'm not trying to write the world's saltiest memoir. It's about understanding. Understanding how I let myself become so complacent. How I ignored so many red flags that, in hindsight, were less flags and more full-blown semaphore signals with air horns. My new condo is not big, but it's mine. Quiet, uncluttered, filled with my books. My old, hideously comfortable armchair, frayed at the edges, shaped like my spine. And my pride and joy, a German-engineered coffee maker so complicated it could launch a satellite. Sarah used to call it aggressively hideous. But every morning, it makes a cup so perfect I want to salute it. That simple, predictable coffee ritual, it feels like fun. More fun than I've had in years. No drama. No existential monologues over candlelight, just coffee. I've even started hiking on weekends, something Sarah always hated because it was just walking uphill with no destination. Which, ironically, describes our marriage pretty well. The other day, I stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, sun on my face, wind at my back, and I felt something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Peace. It wasn't the high of spite or revenge. It was something deeper. It was freedom. The rock is no longer an anchor for someone else's ship. It's a mountain standing on its own. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.